Good morning and happy Thursday. For those of you that are new, welcome. And for those that are returning, welcome back to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, episode number 18. April showers bring May ghosts. My name is Bill, and I've been an airline pilot for the past 7 years. I hold 5 FAA type ratings and currently fly the Boeing 737 for a major U.S. airline. My co-host is fellow co-founder of the Three Green Simulations Group, retired NYC EMT, and flight sim extraordinaire Tommy D of Level Flight Simulations. On this week's show, we are talking about large gaming updates, the new automatic airline refund bill, and General Motors re-returning to the EV market in Europe. Then we will learn industry terms with jargon in a jiffy, live listener Q&A, and our discussion this week, the paranormal, science fiction, or an unexplainable reality. Tommy D, how are you doing this morning?
Morning, Bill. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. This week has been quite busy because remember I told you at the beginning of the week I was supposed to be going to Anchorage. So I was super excited. I've been to Alaska before, but never Anchorage. And as Tommy knows, because I was texting while it was happening, I didn't make it to Anchorage. Unfortunately, my commute fell through. Benefit, I got to go home a little bit earlier than planned, but I lost pay and I didn't get to go to Anchorage. And then because of that free time that I originally wasn't planning on streaming, I just kind of out of nowhere was like, you know what? I've been trying to get a extra hard drive added to my PC setup for memory because I was kind of eating up a lot of memory. So I went to Best Buy and got a 2 terabyte hard drive installed. And let's see what else. I made the big screen. I was going to show you guys on here, but unfortunately, for some reason, TikTok on my computer's not working, so I can't really show that TikTok, but that's on my TikTok where I got to do some movie quotes and such as well. And then today, we're doing, obviously, our podcast, but then later today, I'm also going to be doing my American Truck Simulator stream on Twitch. So it's been a very, very busy week, if you ask me. It's been very productive, but very busy. How about yourself, Tommy?
It has, and same thing with the busyness. Knocked
Yeah, it's
out
just
freshman year in school. We both got the affiliates. You got it a week before me on
That's right. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Twitch.
I should have said that. Congratulations, Tommy.
Thank you. And between streaming, running around, and just the general adulting, I think I was out of the house 6, 7 hours yesterday. We were running around.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say you're pretty, it seemed like you were pretty busy yesterday, too. I mean, I was, too. I was running around taking care of stuff. And then today it is storming. So if something happens to the connection, it's my fault. So the power went out on my end. So that is my apologies. But up first this morning, Tommy is going to be leading us today in news. He's handling gaming and automotive today. So first up, Tommy D is going to be handling automotive news, talking about how GM returns to Europe.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? So, very interesting out of the Detroit Free Press. Now, they've been there in a while, but it's actually called GM Europe, and it is the General Motors basis. And they're starting to market electric vehicles in Europe. And interesting enough, uh, for those of you who know, I am in college and I'm taking business with a marketing class in it. Well, I was in the marketing class, and as it turns out, they're marketing the EV Cadillac. So this is definitely a move for them to go towards the luxury market in Europe. Um, Germany, Switzerland, the bigger companies with a higher median income is what the actual target market was for. I may have done some fair market research on that before the show. Um, the new experience center is what they're calling it. So, we're talking a vehicle that's 75,000 dollars base, and it's a Cadillac SUV. Now, the I had originally seen this article as a newscast on the BBC network last week, and I was like, very interesting that they go right for the Cadillac. They don't market any other GM products at this time, but they're hoping to start with the luxury. So, very, very interesting on how they're going to do that. They returned in May of 2022 because GM actually had pulled out of the European market for a time. citing uh, they just weren't making any money. So I find that very, very interesting. Now they're there, and now they're going for the luxury market. Um, we're going to watch this a little bit. I want to see how Cadillac does in Europe. I know governments are interested in it as escort and vehicles for their diplomats, but we'll have to see where it goes from here. Me personally, I don't know if I would market the luxury vehicle right off the bat. I think I would go for more of a median income sedan. So, what do you think about that, Bill?
Caught me in the middle of drinking my soda. Um, I I don't know, and I was part of this. I was up getting because my Roomba wood house just started, and so I had to go close the door. So I don't know. I just the marketing it all changes. Everything in the world is going towards EV, right? That's where everything's going. So, but it's I feel like it's not taking off as much here in the United States as one had hoped. So GM entering or re-entering the European market, where I think EVs are a little more popular because they're a little more environmentally conscious, is probably a good marketing plan, if you ask me.
It is, but I don't know if I would go with the luxury vehicle right off the bat.
Well, it
There
depends
are
on the
plenty of GM
market.
products
Yeah.
that are EV
hmm
that could be marketed over there rather than going straight at the Cadillac.
But it depends on the market, though. If they have a better, like, I mean, I feel like they drive more luxury cars in Europe than they do here. I
I tend
so
to agree with you, and I did kind of try looking for that research, but that was a brick wall every which way I turned.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see. I would say I feel like there's a higher market or a bigger market for more luxury cars uh, across the pond than here. So I think it's an interesting like shot, but I think more so it's a 50-50 type thing where I don't think it's a bad idea, but I also it'll just be interesting because it's like they're exploring kind of an unknown market because I know for a fact EVs have not taken off here um, as anticipated. So I think that's part of the problem too. Is the cost here is so expensive for EVs, nobody wants them. And I mean, like me, I would love to drive an EV, but utility wise, especially owning a home, I need a truck. So that's what I'm getting next. I would love to get like an F-150 Lightning, but with the manufacturing delays and I think they've only manufactured like one trim level, so it's super expensive to
Something
buy.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buy it, not yet. So that's the thing. I think
Mm-mm.
GM's doing good diversifying their customer base. Absolutely,
It's gonna be interesting to see where this goes. I have a
exactly.
feeling this will wind up being governmental vehicles.
Well, probably yeah. If they could get the secure a large enough contract, especially with as environmentally conscious as a lot of the governments are, like Scotland and Ireland and stuff like that, then yeah, I think government contracting would probably be a good steady cash flow for them. All right, well, Tommy, thanks for the automotive news. Up next, I'll be doing my one news bit today, which is going to be aviation news. As we normally start off, we do aviation history this week in aviation history, but I do have to correct myself. We do pride ourselves on this podcast about being accurate for certain stuff like that, and I misinterpreted the last week's aviation history. So last week we talked about Harriet Quimby, that she was the first American female pilot or woman pilot to cross the English Channel solo. I misinterpreted solo as like training solo. That was my bad. And I went on to talk about the probably reason why she went overseas, and I was wrong. So, correction. Harriet Quimby did in fact receive her pilot's license here in the United States. Her flight over the English Channel wasn't a training solo. It was in fact the first time a woman flew the channel, or American woman pilot flew the channel. Harriet Quimby was the first woman to earn her pilot's license here in the United States. I did mention it was similar to Bessie Coleman, which is not entirely accurate because Bessie Coleman had to go overseas to get her license, not because she was a woman, but because she was black. So I had mentioned that being discriminated against for being a woman at the time is not accurate. The reason Bessie Coleman had to go overseas is because she was black, and because of segregation and discrimination, she wasn't at that time in the 1920s able to get her pilot's license here in the United States. She had to go overseas to, I believe it was France, for the FAI to be able to get her pilot's license. So That was my correction. I stand corrected. I was wrong. But for this week's aviation history news, this week in aviation, April 24th, 1909 in Italy, Wilbur Wright makes 5 flights in Cintocelle, Italy? Cintocelle, Italy, and with King Victor Emmanuel III of Italy. During one flight, a Universal News Agency cameraman accompanies him and takes the first motion picture of an airplane in flight. Now, I want to mention this because the documentation of early flight wasn't as popular as you may expect. Believe it or not, when the Wright brothers first flew back in 1903 and made the first manned flight on Kitty Hawk, on Kill Devil Hills in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, and on December 17th, there was only 3 articles in the world that published that story. A lot of people thought it was a hoax. Even the United States, when the Wright brothers approached the United States government to patent their idea and to provide funding and research for it from the U.S. military, they were like, no thanks, just another hoax. And it was actually the British who approached the Wright brothers first because they saw the potential for military air power just from that moment in history. So we have a lot to attribute to the British, even though we're the first ones, Americans were the first ones to discover manned flight or powered flight per se. It was the British that realized the full potential. It took America almost 2 decades to really invest and realize that aviation was the future. So that was this week in aviation history. Now let's talk about this week, like currently this week as of Wednesday. The United States federal government has just, and the Department of Transportation have passed a new bill, if you will, a new law about automatic refunds for airline tickets and ancillary fees. This is as of April 24th, like I said, from Wednesday, and this is directly from the Department of Transportation website. So the new rule, I guess it's a law, makes it easy to get money back for canceled or significantly changed flights and significantly delayed checked bags and other additional service not provided by the airline. Secretary of Transportation, U.S. Transportation Secretary Peter Buttigieg said passengers deserve to get their money back when an airline owes them without headaches or haggling. Our new rule sets a new standard to require airlines to promptly provide cash refunds to their passengers. I know it can be frustrating. I mean, I've been at airports for major delays when people were getting delays. I've been yelled at airports, specifically Houston last summer, because of the frustrations. Because it really isn't straightforward. Before this law, I can't really go because I'm not too knowledgeable on the cancellation policies of each airline. But it was basically travel vouchers or cash, but it wasn't always so easy to get the cash. The airlines like to hang on to the cash for the cash flow, and then have you still stay on the airline and use it as a travel credit or voucher elsewhere, is what it was previously. Now, under the new rule, passengers are entitled to a refund for a canceled or significantly changed flight. This is defined as a refund if their flight is canceled or significantly changed and they do not accept alternative transportation or travel credits. For the first time, the rule defines significant change. Significant change to a flight includes departure or arrival times that are more than 3 hours delayed domestically and 6 hours internationally, departures or arrivals from a different airport, increases in the number of connections, or instances where passengers are downgraded to a lower class of service, or connections at different airports or flights on different planes that are less accessible or accommodating to a person with a disability. Automatic refund includes significantly delayed baggage returns, so passengers who file a mishandled baggage report will be entitled to a refund of their checked bag fee if not delivered within 12 hours of their domestic flight arriving at the gate, or 15 to 30 hours of their international flight arriving at the gate, depending on the length of the flight. Extra services not provided is also an automatic refund, which includes passengers' refund for the fee that they paid for an extra service such as Wi-Fi, seat selection, or in-flight entertainment if an airline fails to provide the service. The final rule improves the passenger experience by requiring refunds to be automatic, so the airlines must automatically issue refunds without passengers having to explicitly request them or jump through the hoops to get them. They have to be prompt. Airlines and ticket agents must issue refunds within 7 business days of refunds becoming due for credit card purchases and 20 calendar days for other payment methods. Let me just check something here real quick. One of my moderators was jumping in, saying my audio went out. My audio did not go out. I am showing... Yep. Tommy, you can still hear me, right?
Oh yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah. Lando, that is 100% you, my buddy. All right. Sorry. Back to where I was. I was talking about the. Excuse me. Sorry. I was talking about uh, the new bill. So cash and original form of payment. So airlines and ticket agents must provide refunds in cash or whatever original payment method an individual used to make the purchase, such as a credit card or airline miles. Airlines may not substitute vouchers, travel credits, or other forms of compensation unless the passenger affirmatively, so they want it, chooses to accept alternative compensation. Full amount. Airlines and ticket agents must provide full refunds of the ticket purchase price minus the value of any portion of transportation already used, and the refunds must include all government imposed taxes, fees, and airline imposed fees, regardless of whether the taxes or fees are refundable to the airlines. In addition, in instances where consumers are restricted by a government or advised by a medical professional not to travel to, from, or within the United States due to a serious communicable disease, the final rule requires that airlines must provide travel credits or vouchers, and consumers may be required to provide documentary evidence to support their request. But travel vouchers or credits provided by airlines must be transferable and valid for at least 5 years from the date of issuance. Um, Sorry, guys. Just give me. I'm going to pause here. All right. So basically, and I'll bring in Tommy on this. So basically, before this was happening, the only thing that was really driving airlines to do like refunds and like baggage, like refunding fees for baggage and stuff like that, is good like customer service. But there was really nothing government wise or law wise to prevent them from not providing refunds. So basically, what this is doing is backstopping the consumer side of airlines, which I can't honestly. Sorry, that was probably my. What the heck? Sorry. My technology is going nuts. My Siri just went off. I think my Roomba just ran into the door, was what that sound was. Anyways, and then Lando, my moderator over here, is telling me, hey, your audio's not working in the middle of the thing, and it is. Anyways, but back to what I was saying. So the airline industry, up until recently, had a kind of a good handle on things, but I feel like the return in demand travel, the revenge traveling that we talked about post-pandemic, has resulted into an overwhelming demand for the airline system, and thus we're seeing a slow decrease or degradation of customer service, right? And especially with coming out of the pandemic, a lot of airlines are trying to hold on to that cash flow, try to stay liquid, have cash in the bank, basically, is what they're trying to do. But this law kind of backstops the customer, make sure that they aren't going to be taken advantage of by the airlines. My biggest thing that I really liked about that is they defined what significantly changed means, because before that wasn't defined. And also the cash refund. For the longest time, a couple of airlines I know of, all they did was the vouchers. That was it. It's like there was no cash or transfer credits. They never wanted to give back the cash, but now they have to automatically, unless the customer says, no, I want those in travel miles, or no, I want those in a travel voucher. What do you think about that, Tommy? Is that a good step for the industry?
I'm not so sure if it's a good step for the industry.
Why is
I
that?
understand that the airlines want to stay liquid, and
Mm-hmm.
any company in America, not only airlines, they always want to hold on to their liquid assets. They always want to keep that cash in the bank. I do agree that, like, yeah, give me a travel voucher, refund me, because what if you're on a trip with a finite amount of time, such as a vacation,
Mm-hmm.
and everything now is messed up? Because if I'm leaving on Sunday to go to Florida on vacation, and I'm at
Mm-hmm.
the airport and this happens, I'm kind of stuck. Yeah, give
Yeah.
me my money back. Um, I like that idea. Or, depending on what's going on at the airport, you know, get me on that flight,
Yeah.
and voucher it over. Is it necessarily going to work that way? I don't know. The one question I
Well,
do have is there
yeah,
an appeal from the airlines yet?
I don't think they can. That's the thing, because the airlines can lobby because airlines are not government entities. So airlines can lobby Congress and stuff not to pass this, but it's already been passed. So it's law, it's rule,
So
it's in
there's
effect.
no way back,
Nope, they
no
have to
back
follow
course for
this.
them at all. That's very
They've already
interesting.
had it. They've because with the way the rulemaking happens, there's a notice of proposed rulemaking where people from all around the country and all the public can comment and make comments about that, and so on and so forth. But it's a rule, so it's by the Department of Transportation, and all airlines are regulated by the Department of Transportation. Not saying that they can't challenge it and take it like to the Supreme Court, but I don't think that's really going to be happening given airline performance this past couple of years. Um, and to go back on what you were saying, well, change the flight. The default is to refund the money in the way it was paid, so credit card, cash, etc., or airline miles. The person, the passenger, can say, no, 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 I want to be transferred to that flight. Give me travel credit. So it gives more power to the consumer, I believe.
Which is
So
where the power should be. It's your money.
yes,
It's my money.
well,
It's
that's what
our
I'm telling you.
listeners'
That's why
money.
I think this is a good law. It's a good protection. It's a good level of protection, especially with bag fees. Could you imagine, paying the airline $70 or whatever it is because they just up bag fees a month ago, um, and then losing your bag and like not or mishandling your bag or anything like that, and then not getting any sort of compensation for it other than sorry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would.
Now if it doesn't get to where it's supposed to on time or let's see, within 15 to 30 outs or sorry, 12 hours of their domestic flight arriving, then they have to refund the baggage fee. So that's good too because that's another way an ancillary fee that for the longest time that they didn't have to refund because it was considered ancillary, not part of the primary ticket.
Right.
So I think it's good. I think it's a good way to like I said, kind of protect the consumers. Granted, from the business side, being a pilot myself, good money or happy company is a happy pilot group. Not well, most times. So it's just kind of like, okay, how is this going to affect our sales? But I am excited because I think this is going to force airlines to really focus more on customer service. My current airline is phenomenal with customer service. That is why one of the reasons I left the American group to come to this company is because their customer service is phenomenal. They're very customer oriented, which is not said for other airlines. So I'm hoping that this regulation will help the traveling public because one, it's kind of a double-sided not sword, but it's two-sided. One, it's going to help with customer service, but if there's better customer service and it forces them to be better to their customers, then more people will want to fly, right? So they
In
don't
the
feel
long
like they're
run.
getting scammed out of their money. Yeah. So overall, I think this bill is good not only for the consumers but for the airlines because it's going to promote a higher level of customer service, in my opinion. So, but that's what all I have today on aviation news. We talked about, like I said, automatic refunds and some history. Up next, Tommy has a very large gaming update. I was trying to figure out a way to summarize it in there, but he has a couple things that he's going to be talking about with gaming news. So, Tommy, take it away.
Thanks. So the first part of the gaming news is I actually have three updates, and they're all a little bit lengthy, and I'm going to try shortening them down so we're not here for 2 days. But we all know I'm a big self-proclaimed Star Wars nerd, and the Battlefront Classic series uh, got a big update, right? And when I do the actual gaming update, a lot of the news I get comes from IGN, the International Gaming Network. They have actually said, and I quote, Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection gets second update 6 weeks after the disastrous launch. And it was it was a dumpster fire, the launch of this game. And I mean, it was bashed 9 ways to Sunday. It didn't even hit 44% of gamer liking. It was just bashed. Um, a quick list of changes with update 2, myriad problems that included audio, visual, overlapping textures, misfiring AI, gameplay, um, like not starting properly. You would sit in a multiplayer lobby for like 7, 8, and 9 minutes waiting to get into a game on just multiplayer. Also, public servers. They did not have enough servers for the amount of people that were playing it. Now, when they first released the Star Wars Battlefront, it was hugely popular, and they had a little bit more server space. Technology wasn't exactly what it was right here in this present day, so they were able to get away. But now, with the bandwidth that was used, with the infrastructure that they had in place, the servers were absolutely horrible, and that was the number one site. So the game is retailing for 35 bucks. 34.99 is the actual retail plus tax wherever you live. And you get the original Battlefront games. That was their little thing. And you get those games, for 35 bucks. That's not too shabby. But I know for me, mm-mm, wouldn't have jumped on that for all of King Midas's gold, because um, I'm going to put a link in our Discord, the Three Green Simulations Group Discord, and you could actually go in and you could look at the laundry list of bug fixes that this update has done. And it was done cross platform. So all platforms, the list is literally a half a page. And then they broke it down to the Steam version of the store, PlayStation, and the Nintendo Switch. Oddly enough, they said nothing about Xbox, which is pretty wild. Um, Also, controller inputs was a big problem. So you're sitting here on your controller, you pull the trigger button, and you just get a little flag that comes out and says "bang," which was what a lot of people looked into, and this kind of disheartened me a little bit because, like I said, I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm surrounded by Star Wars while we're doing the show. You guys just don't see it. The second update I want to give is Active Sky released for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And that is huge news in and of itself, because I've used Active Sky back 2004 Century of Flight. It was awesome. Better texturing, better cloud layers, better weather. It still mimics real world weather along with the simulator, but it intensifies it. It makes it look more real. It does take a little bit of a frame rate hit when it's downloading. I actually experienced that once, and I went in during a flight and did some adjustments, and it worked out very, very well. Um, a lot of people are not going to get the Active Sky. Those of us who already have it, we're loving it, we're good with it. Those of us who don't, or they might be using Rex, which is almost the same thing with the higher texturing and everything else. And that's really what it's about, right? When, especially for those of us who stream the flight simulator, you want it to look as authentic as possible. One of the funny things is everyone thought this would be the end all be all to have the weather radars working in all the aircraft. I got some bad news for you. Not the case. They are still not functioning. PDMG, Phoenix, none of that have any plans to update it and get it to work. It might be integrated into the PMDG 777. I do know for a fact that they want to go ahead and get something going, because once it went public, I believe this was 2 days after Active Sky came out. They turned around and said, "Well, you're still not going to have the weather radar because of this, that, and the other thing," and everyone blew their proverbial gaskets, me included. I'm like, "This is ridiculous. You're paying $30 for this, and we all want the weather radar." Again, it's more of a visual effect. And depending on your level of immersion, you might request 20 degrees left, 20 degrees right heading, to evade weather and stuff like that. The one thing that is really cool, it does add higher altitude turbulence. The cloud layers, Bill and I were actually talking about it last week when I got it. The thunderstorms that top out 60, 70, 80,000 feet, right? Where you see that anvil type shape to it, they're depicted in the sim. And it also simulates pop-ups. You won't see them on the radar, like I said, but it does have pop-ups. I was doing a test flight for a friend of ours on some flight routes last week, and I was watching lightning all over the place. I had my own little private lightning show, and I tried to take some screenshots for it, to share with our Discord group, but it just didn't happen. It was moving too quick for these fingers. So that's where we're at with Active Sky. Me personally, like I said, I had it 20 years ago. I went right back to it. Um, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the real world weather in the sim. It does look good. It does behave properly. Me, I just wanted to push it and boost it just that much. So hopefully, a little bit later on down the line, we'll see some patch from some of these uh, developers, and those weather radars will start working. Last but not least, I'm actually going to talk about a product and answer a couple questions from our viewers that watch our streams as well as the talk show at one shot. Avia works. It's spelled Avia, just like the sneaker, and works. Um, that is a program where you could purchase licenses where you could actually turn an iPad or a tablet, Android tablet, into an FMS. I've been using it now for 4 months, 5 months, and there's only certain aircraft. So the PMDG 73, 74, and 77s are going to have it. The CRJ series from Airsoft, and what else has it? The Mad Dog, the MD-80 Mad Dog, which I still won't be purchasing. But what you see in the PMDG, we're all familiar with the PMDG FMS. That's translated right onto my tablet, and it's 100% functional. Everything that you could do on the sim on your computer screen, you could do right there on the tablet. And I got a fancy little thing that I pull out from my desk and have it resting in between my controls. It's $10 a license, but again, you're purchasing a license. So what you purchase is yours. So you can put it on another machine, you can put it on a different tablet, all over that. But the product itself integrates fairly easy. You take a picture of a QR code and boom, it pops up. There's only one drawback. Every time the aircraft's update, you got to go back to the Avia Works website and update it and add the licenses back in, which is literally nothing. You just save them to your desktop, and it's just a drag and drop into where you would activate a license. But in closing, that's pretty much where we're at. And also, ViaWorks is working on the programming through PMDG, so that way, when PMDG releases, you'll be able to use their system for a tablet-based FMS, and that's going to be a good thing because I'm enjoying it. Your mic, buddy.
God, that was a lot. Yeah, I know. I'm aware.
It
You don't have
was.
to
It
keep
was
telling
pretty
me.
lengthy this
That's
week.
just yeah. It's pretty good. So a lot of Microsoft Flight Simulator updates. So that's good. Something that you may want to I don't know, maybe premiere, not really premiere, highlight in your upcoming Microsoft Flight Simulator streams. Maybe
I might be.
as a
I might
guess.
be.
As a guess. I mean, if you talk about it on the show, might as well throw it out there
Mm-hmm.
on your streams as well. All right, with that, we will transition to our favorite segment. I still think it's the favorite segment of all time here. Jargon in a Jiffy. For those of you that are new to the show, Jargon in the Jiffy takes industry terms from Tommy's career as a medical professional and my career as an airline pilot, and we put them into a sentence. We choose one word each from our careers. We try to use them in a sentence, and our goal is to try to stump the other host. But their job is to try to guess the word. And ultimately, at the end of it, we're trying to learn something about each other's industries and also help you understand certain terms and jargon that may be a little intimidating in our industry. So, with that being said, Tommy is taking the lead on a lot of things today. So, to carry on that trend, Tommy will be starting us off with banana bag. Okay?
The
That's going to be
banana
interesting.
bag, yeah.
All right. So,
So,
take it away, Tommy, with your sentence.
so my sentence is, this guy's just not looking right. He looks a little dehydrated. I think I'm going to throw a banana bag on him. I think we're going to
Banana
hang a
bag, is that
banana bag.
an Ivy bag? Like a
It
drip?
is. It's actually very specific.
Is it?
Yeah.
A water bag? I don't know. That's what we call humans, right? Water
So
bags.
you got the
Um,
IV. So you're like 84% there.
so banana bag, is it like a potassium IV?
Oh, no, we won't mess with potassium. Free
I was
hospitally,
gonna
we
say
do not
that'd
mess with
probably
potassium because that's
kill
very
somebody.
powerful.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I honestly don't know. So what you're saying is the banana part. It is an IV. It's a bag,
Hmm.
but it's what you're the banana parts. Is it what's in the bag? Is
Yeah,
what makes
yeah,
it?
it's the coloring that makes it. It's actually kind of funny.
Oh,
Um,
it's yellow fluid.
yeah, believe it or not, it's
Just give.
thiamine,
What is it? Say
vitamin
that slowly.
B12,
Oh, okay. B12. So
and
it's like a hydration pack.
it is. And I am not singling out anyone. The most times I've seen banana bags, uh, pre-hospitally, have been on people who have been intoxicated.
Oh, so just dehydrate. So that's what's in it is B12.
Hmm.
Because fun
Yeah.
fact, I um like I'm sorry, what were you gonna say? I was gonna have a little story, which makes
No,
sense.
no.
I
Continue
think.
your story, please.
So when I was in college, a friend of mine, we were down at his place in Florida, and we were outside cleaning his grandparents' car because they would let us stay with them, and we'd do chores around the house on the holidays if because I couldn't go home all the time, just because of the flights and were expensive and stuff from Florida. But we would go down there, and we spent one Thanksgiving all day outside polishing and waxing cars and cleaning the garage. And my friend, who didn't listen to me, wasn't drinking enough water. All he was having was like Lipton iced tea, high sugar content. Long story short, he was dehydrated. But at 3 a.m. in the morning, he's like banging on my door, right where I was sleeping. And I wake up, and he is like delirious. Like he's like, I can't keep water down. He's like, I feel terrible, and like I can't do it. And then he like takes off running to go throw up again. And like he's just collapsing. I'm like, dude, what the heck is going on? And I was like, we got to get you to the hospital, man. I don't know what's going on. And luckily, the hospital was like right across the street from the community that his grandparents lived in. They had really nice cars. That was the only downside. I was terrified to drive one of his grandpa's cars because they were really nice cars. But anyway, so we got in there, drove him there. We get there, and all this, all this like drama and stuff that he was dehydrated. So what did they
Hmm.
do? They slapped a couple $100 worth of the banana bag, on him, and he walks out going, "Oh, I feel great,
Yeah, oh, yeah,
dude."
yeah.
And it's
And
at 3 in the morning, absolutely terrifying. And all it was he was dehydrated. So, but that's the reason I told that story is because that's what was being hung was the banana bag,
yeah,
right?
and
It's just that's
let
all
me
he
tell you
needed.
something. I've seen medics get sung the highest of praises, and let's face it, holidays come, holiday parties, an ambulance going to transport someone who had a little bit too much fun in the holiday festivities. But when they leave
Indeed.
the ER 5, 6 hours later, if they see that crew, like, oh my God, we're not even hungover, you're
So that's the secret
and
is
it's true,
B12
it
supplement.
cures the hangover because a hangover is really nothing more than dehydration.
Yeah,
That's
that's why you
it.
gotta drink a lot of water. So,
But yeah,
but yeah,
that is
that's
the.
good.
I've had a
Tommy
couple
stumped me on
banana
that one.
bags, like a bad flu.
Tommy's yeah,
Eh?
Tommy stumped me on that one because I thought, it's gonna be the. It's kind of
Well,
like what
not
I do to
really.
you.
I'm not going to call it a total stump. You
No,
guessed
I
IV.
think it was because I didn't know what it was. It's like what I do to you. You're always like, "Oh yeah, it's this," and it's like, "But is it though?" So I would call it a stump because I didn't know what the banana part. I didn't actually get the banana part. So that was a good one. All right, now mine. And see the thing is the hard thing is with Tommy is I sim with him, and I've a lot of the simming are longer flights, like our 7 hour flight to from San Francisco to La Hui that one time, and we just sit there and talk about aviation. So when I come up with these terms, I honestly can't remember if we talked about them or not. So my word for this week is MOA. The F-16s had to stop their training exercise because a Piper Warrior had entered the MOA. MOA.
MOA.
It stands for something. It's an acronym.
Is it, I believe it's the military operation area,
It is. It is. That's a
and
MOA.
it's
Yep.
and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, because I
Oh,
remember this part of ground school.
okay.
Unless, let's say I'm in a 172, okay,
Okay.
the MOA. I am
Mm-hmm.
not allowed to enter a mower, and I have to get that information on where the active mower is. Because normally I know, like, if you head out towards the Midwest, like Utah and stuff like that, there's specific training grounds for fire aircraft that could be live fire, and I'm not allowed to enter it at all. But I think the only time I'm allowed to enter it is if my aircraft is actually in distress.
Did you hear
Like
that? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you guys hear that?
I
That
heard
was the
lightning.
loudest crack of thunder
Yeah.
I have ever heard, and I might need to go change my pants. That was terrifying. Like, I have noise canceling headphones, and it shook the house, whatever that was. That's why I looked. Um, but back to MOA. You're kind of right. So you got military operations area correct. Okay. However, you do not need permission to fly in a MOA. It's highly recommended that you contact the controlling agency to see if it's active or not, and if it is active, still steer clear, because there are supposed to be either radar or like spotters that if they spot a non-participating aircraft, they're supposed to stop their training exercises. So MOAs, you don't need explicit clearance to go through. Now, if you're IFR, I like as an airline pilot, many of times we've been given routing around active MOAs. That's just because it's for our safety and for the safety of the military pilots during their training. So you don't have to. So this is called special use airspace, and WARM PC, WARM PC is how we remember it. You got warning areas, you got alert areas, restricted areas, MOAs, prohibited areas, and controlled firing areas. So warning areas are generally off the coast, about 3 miles. That's where they do military exercises and stuff. Not restricted. You don't have to avoid them, but sometimes there could be like live firing and stuff going on. And if there is military drills as an airline pilot, sometimes in IFR, they will give you routing around it to stay clear of it. Same thing, they have spotters. If they spot a non-participating vehicle in that area, they have to stop. For alert areas, that's just high, what's it called, flight school traffic or training area. So it's just marked on our VFR maps to let us know that there's a higher volume of training than normal. So you got to be cautious, a lot of maneuvering. With restricted airspace, that's a little bit different. Restricted airspace you can get cleared into, but only by the controlling agency. So controlling agency being like Kansas City Center, Washington Center, Potomac Approach. They have the whether or not it's active or not, and if it's safe for you to go through, they can clear you through it. But you have to get clearance from a controlling agency. MOA, we just talked about. MOA, you don't need... It's not smart to fly through it. And I think there's even a video circulating on social media where a pilot was arguing with the air traffic controller about being able to go through a MOA. You 100% can go through a MOA, but it's not the brightest idea to be in a Piper Cherokee while F-16s and F-15s are out there practicing dogfighting.
Right.
Just saying, because they move, and a lot of sometimes their training routes, they allow them to go really fast on them so they can practice low level stuff as well. So it's dangerous to be in a MOA if it's active. So you don't need special permission, but you shouldn't go into it if it's active. And the way you check if it's active is by contacting the controlling agency. Prohibited area, it's very clear. Prohibited, you're not allowed into it at all. And C is controlled firing area. Those aren't denoted. We don't know where those are at all, or if they're active. Air traffic control might get a notice to air missions about it, but that involves live firing of shells and projectiles and stuff like that. And since we don't know about them as pilots, there is a radar spotter or a train spotter to spot non-participating vehicles or aircraft to stop whatever they're doing immediately to prevent harm to the aircraft or vehicle.
Right, because we had when I was in Florida working in the comm center, we had Pine Castle bombing range in our county, and that was U.S. Navy, and
which is probably a MOA.
Yeah, but we would actually get alerted because I worked in the comm center at the time. We would actually get alerted by Jacksonville Center because the county I was in, we had helicopters through the sheriff's office up and about. So
Yeah,
just,
do notice.
hey,
Yeah.
they're about to go active over at Pine Castle. You might not want to go over there.
Yeah, and there's one in Central Florida that I used to fly around all the time. Merida? Not Merida. That's Central America. There's a MOA in the central part by River Ranch in Central Florida that was not a live fire, but I used to, when I used to go four-wheeling with the girl I was dating at the time, we used to stay right along the property where we were at was right along that area, and at night you could see flares going up. They were basically doing live training exercises with helicopters, troops, and stuff like that.
Every once in a while,
yeah.
give that little poof.
Yep. So that's MOA, military operations area. So you got the acronym right, but it's just the permissions and stuff. Ironically, you don't, or surprisingly, I should say, you don't need permission to be in there. It's just not smart to be in there if they're hot. So
yeah, that's the one that surprised me.
Yeah. So there we go. So we both kind of, I wouldn't call that a stump. You got it. You got what MOA was.
We'll call it stumpish.
Stump-ish. I got stumped. You got stump-ish. So, but that was a good jargon in the Jiffy. Now, we still haven't come up with a new segment yet. It's something that we're still working on. I honestly think either I've come up with two ideas that I want to run through our moderators on our Discord server before we make this. I just want to see what they think, but I haven't really told Tommy about it, so I just want to get your reaction live. So the first one I'd like to do is do another game called Name That Sound, where our moderators pick some random aviation or gaming sound or transportation sound, and we get a sound clip of it, and it's up to you and I to try to figure out what that sound clip is, whether it be like alerts in a cockpit, car sounds, train sounds, etc. Or we can do a safety stand down segment where we go back to the beginning of aircraft accidents, which was back in 1904, I believe. Selfridge, I believe was his name. He was a lieutenant in the Army. The Wright brothers, or someone was demonstrating the Wright flyer to one of the to someone, a lieutenant in the Army, and they hit turbulence, which obviously at the time they didn't know much about. Didn't have seatbelts, and the lieutenant fell to his death. I got to look up his name. I want to say it's Selfridge, but he was the first aviation casualty in history.
I think you're right about that because I think you brought him up on one of the very early episodes.
I might have. So I think those are our two options. We can either do a safety stand down segment, or we can do a Name That Sound. So viewers, listeners, if you guys are curious or have a suggestion, definitely join the Discord or leave a comment to tell us which one you'd like us to do. I like either or. I think either or is a good option. But we're still deciding on what that next segment is going to be. But for now, we're moving on to our next segment, which is going to be our live viewer Q&A. And we do have a couple of them in here. We got Caden, Fly with Caden, one of our content creators from our Discord, and a fellow pilot as well. Hello, good morning, Caden. Let's see. Joseph Kuhner, is that one of your followers? I don't recognize the name.
Yeah.
Oh, is it
Joe
Joe?
from Modern Warfare.
Oh, it's Joe. Hey, Joe. Stop by to say hi during my lunch to say hi. It's a guy that we play Modern Warfare with. And let's see. We got a couple comments in here. Kaden did say this while we were talking. You can actually enter an active MOA while you were talking. I think he was trying to help you out with jargon and Jiffy there. Thanks, Kaden, but he is right. Kaden is 100% right. You can fly into an MOA. And then Sean from TikTok says, can car dealerships teach financial literacy classes soon? I guess when you were talking about GM, maybe, is when you put that. I mean, but here's the deal. If you do that, then they won't be able to trick you into buying things you're not supposed to.
Right. You're never going to see a dealership or anyone talk about financial literacy with anyone.
Car dealerships oh my goodness. Car dealerships and salesmen or car salesmen, never trust them. Don't trust them. Trust but verify. I've had my first car buying experience was absolutely terrible when I was in Chicago, but I'm not going to go into that. But yeah, I can trust them you can only trust them as far as you can throw them, and I can't throw them very far. So let's see. And then Lando, one of our moderators, besides telling me my microphone wasn't working when it was, said he's talking about the airlines. I don't think that airlines should be fully liable for weather delays, but cancellations should be refunded. I believe that still kind of works in there. But I think I got to read a little bit more. I think weather delays are still, because that's outside of the airline's control. It's still going to fall under things that were controllable by the airlines, if that makes sense. But like losing baggage, that's controllable. That's something that they can control. Anyways. Do you have anything on your side, Tommy?
Chris says hello. Good to see us. Hello, everybody. Bill and I say hello, everybody.
Thank you, guys. And like I said, I usually do this. I forgot to put it up here. But if you guys do you have any questions or want to be part of our community, we do have a free Discord called the 3 Green Simulations Group. It will always be free. We're never going to charge you to be a part of it. It's a great way to get access to Tommy and I directly. We like to answer questions about what we do, about the talk show, and about our content, as well as we game with you all too. We love gaming with our Discord members. But also, if you want to meet other like-minded individuals who are aspiring content creators, people who are pilots, aviation enthusiasts, commercial truck drivers, anything transportation or technology related, there's a wonderful group of people in our Discord server. So I put the QR code up there as well. If you're listening to this and you're like, I can't see the QR code, you're right, because you're listening to it. If you go to our bios at our TikToks, Twitch, or YouTube, all our social media channels, we have link trees. If you click on them, there is a Discord symbol that you can go, or link that you can go click on, and it'll take you to our Discord as well. This is also a great place to suggest topics, segments, or even questions that you may have and want us to answer on the show. Now, onto the meat and potatoes of our podcast. And I always say this every single time. I just want people to know that these podcasts are largely based around our discussion topic. The whole reason we do this is just the random discussions that we have at the end. And the reason that they have it happen at the end is we want you guys to listen to the first part so you can get to this part, because this part's the best. So it's a little bit of marketing there. But our episode today is called April Showers Bring May Ghosts, ? And that is because we are officially, as of today, halfway to Halloween, one of my favorite holidays of all time. Tommy did pick this one out. Paranormal. We're going to be talking about the paranormal. Is it science fiction or unexplainable reality? I'm going to take it more from I'm more of a scientific person, so I have some science theories and can talk about a few other things. But I'm going to let Tommy, this is Tommy's topic, so I'm going to let Tommy lead the conversation. So take it away, Tommy.
Thanks. So one of the things, you see the paranormal shows and the ghost hunters and you see everything. And I am not a huge paranormal buff, but it is a very interesting topic. So I like to hear the pros and cons of each side.
Which ghost hunters are you talking about? Are you talking about the ghost hunters, or are you talking
The
about
ghost hunters,
adventures?
the actual ones that started it out
in
10 years ago,
Rhode
12
Island?
years ago?
Yeah, in Warwick, Rhode Island, Taps.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to make sure, because Ghost Adventures is a hack, and they make the whole paranormal side of things just terrible. But okay, as long as we're talking about the same people.
Yeah, it's the actual ghost hunters. They're
okay,
not one of the spin-offs that saw them get successful. And one of the things I started looking like when Bill and I discussed the topics, normally let me see, today's Friday, so we're a day behind. By Monday of next week, we'll know what our main topic is going to be. And I threw this around. Bill, how about paranormal? Because I kind of like the science behind it. There are so many conflicting stories, though, between scientists. Like some scientists actually say this is not real science whatsoever. That the electromagnetic,
EMF, electromagnetic field.
electromagnetic fields that they're using to detect energies that are given off. They're saying is being actually done by their own equipment. That their radios and all that other stuff.
But so, here's okay.
Go ahead, attack that one.
My argument to that is they always start off with the baseline, right? Any good investigator, and it's part of it's part of a simple experiment, is creating a baseline or a control variable. If you watch, especially early on when they go into it and they're doing EMF fields, they are doing an EMF reading around the room, which includes their camera equipment and radio, so they get a baseline. So let's say it's like 3, right? And anything above a 3 significantly is what's changing that. And what they're saying, and what I love about Taps and the ghost hunters, is they're not saying, oh, it's a ghost, like Ghost Adventures, like that's definitely a ghost. No, what they're saying is that they are detecting a change in something that's measurable and quantifiable as an EMF, an electromagnetic field, and then they investigate it, right? They don't automatically go, hey, that's a ghost, but they investigate it, and when they can't find a reasonable explanation for the change or anomaly in EMF, then it becomes a paranormal because it can't be explained. So, and that's where a lot of people are like, oh, no, they're not saying it's a ghost. They're just saying there's something happening. And when you do certain things, and let's say an EMF starts going up, and then something happens, right? Something else that you can't explain. That's where the correlation. I feel like paranormal science is more of a lot of observational and correlation than anything, because obviously there's no causation if it's not if it's paranormal, you can't do causation because we don't know what it is. That's what makes it paranormal.
Hmm.
So I think it's a lot of correlation. There was a drop in temperature and a spike in EMF, and then a ball flew across the room, right? Or a book fell off the bookshelf. It's all correlation. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, and it's interesting that you put it in that light, because how many people, when you speak of paranormal, right? So you gave a really good definition of what one of my articles said paranormal was, like the science
Hmm.
behind it. But
Yeah.
John Q. Public, who's just flipping around, excuse me, you know, right away you say the word paranormal, it's a ghost. It doesn't
Well,
matter what it was, but it's a ghost.
it's a ghost, or
And
even UFO. Technically, UFOs are paranormal. UAPs.
yes, they are.
Yeah.
They absolutely are. And um, it's kind of funny because then I started getting into the science behind it a little bit, and I'm not even
Hmm.
going to go over it because you already tackled like 7/8 of it, which I appreciate you,
When
bud.
you when you're done, I got a couple theories that I want to
Okay.
talk about that are
But
scientific. There's a scientific base behind them. But go ahead.
and what interests me now is what a business this has become.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like like literally, if you type in paranormal tours, one of the first articles that came up on Google was from, believe it or not, from Travel and Leisure. The 20 most places to go in America, the 20 most haunted places to go in America. And I didn't put haunt, ghost, none of that was in my
Yeah.
Google search. I literally
Yeah.
put in paranormal tour, and
Yeah,
right away,
and
haunting.
yep. Well, and the thing is too, you're talking about tourism, the Alex Johnson Hotel in South Dakota. Um, it's renowned for being haunted. I used to stay there with Envoy when we stayed in Rapid City, but after the ghost hunters went there, investigated, and actually did find, in fact, that there was some paranormal activity going on. Now they charge extra to stay on the eighth floor, which is the hot spot for all that sort of stuff, and they will charge you a package to give you like ghost hunting equipment to stay in those rooms to experience something. So it is largely becoming a tourist a thing as well, and a marketing tool for businesses. And I think that's where the paranormal field gets its bad rap from. Is it's a lot of there's a lot of more people who are in it for the wrong reasons than the right reasons. For example, Ghost Adventures versus Ghost Hunters. Ghost Hunters was the original, baby, back in sci-fi. Was it 2002? I think is when they
Oh
first
yeah, they've been
started,
around forever.
and they were like down to I mean they faced their scrutinism or their scrutiny, right? Because every scientific field like that has that, but they were the legit. But then because of their success, you get spin-offs like Ghost Adventures, which is more of a melodramatic show. Was a melodramatic ghost story telling show is what it is, because they don't really do what Taps does. But then Taps for a while shut down too, and then you had Ghost Nation, and just recently they restarted doing their own Ghost Hunters again,
Hmm.
which is the actual original Ghost Hunters. So I think that's also where the paranormal field gets a little bad rap too, is people don't associate the paranormal field with the bad, with the hoaxers, the people that are like, oh yeah, I just pulled the string and this happened type of deal. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
And it was interesting because you want to know what number 20 was?
what's that?
Daniel J. Inouye International Airport, Honolulu,
Wait, so
Hawaii.
really?
Yeah.
How's that haunted? What
Uh,
did they say? Maybe an accident?
I'll summarize the paragraph real quick, but if you're
Okay.
landing in Honolulu, ghosts are probably the last thing on your mind. Uh, Haunted by a ghost dubbed the Lady in Waiting. According to local legend, she was jilted by her fiance, who took off on an international flight, and shortly after, she took her own life.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Which will go towards one of my theories, and I'll talk about that here in a second. And just you're talking about that early ghost sightings. I was just looking it up while you're talking. The earliest ever ghost sighting ever documented, and this is from History Channel, is in the first century before Common Era. The Roman author and statesman Pliny the Younger recorded one of the first notable ghost stories in his letters, which became famous for their vivid account of life during the heyday of the Roman Empire. So, as far
Sure.
as back as the Roman Empire, people were experiencing these things. So, But I do have a couple theories if you want me to start diving into them, like scientific
Go
theories.
right ahead. Dive
Okay.
away. I am ready.
So, so this one isn't really my theory. There's like other other people that have said it. I guess it's called the record played. I call it the granite record or granite recorder theory. So what that talks about is basically like the old vinyl recording,
Mhm.
how they used to make them. Basically, the needle would when you would sing or make sound, it would indent the sound wave, I guess, into the actual vinyl, and then you run the needle across, and then it vibrates the needle at that frequency, and that's what creates sound, right? So what's happening is energy is creating energy or an impression on another object that then we are then able to replay, right? So the whole recorder or vinyl recording theory is the idea that as energy, right, or electron repulsion theory, the idea that we're not ever actually touching anything, it's all the electrons pushing away from each other that gives us the sensation of touching something, which is actually proven. It is a theory, not proven. It's a theory, a scientific theory. That we are leaving an imprint because we are made up of a ton of electrons, that is very possible that there are certain materials out there, such as like granite, limestone, and certain sorts of rock, which are renowned for having associated paranormal activity, that we are leaving impressions, like a recording on a vinyl record, on those objects. And then whether it be lightning, thunder, rotation of the earth, at some point there are vibrations or something that like kind of like the needle on the record player that causes those recordings to play again, right? So what we're perceiving as paranormal, and this falls under more like residual type hauntings. There's two types: residual haunting and intelligent. Residual is a tape recorder. It'll happen regardless if you're there or not. It just happens. And then there's intelligent, which I'll go into the other theory. Intelligent, which is they interact with you or with the environment around them. So going back to the recorder, that's more residual. So it's like you could be sitting here at an old house for years, never had anything happen, but then an earthquake happens, or you get a really bad like lightning storm that charges the air with energy, and it just hits it at a certain frequency, wavelength, or whatever, the perfect amount for that recording or that energy to be released, and that is what we experience as paranormal activity. So it's not the afterlife. It's not ghosts per se. It's just a tape recording, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my theories. Is the vinyl rock theory is what I call it. Now for intelligent hauntings, which is intelligent interactions, right? Moving stuff, responding. Because in ghost hunters, there's like my favorite is this. I don't have a flashlight, but when they use the flashlight, they loosen it up just enough to where minimal energy can be used to like turn it on to answer questions, and they're having full on conversations back and forth with whatever it is. That's intelligent. But how is that possible, right? If you look at science, because truthfully we don't know what happens after death. We
Right.
don't. We have no idea. Not saying that religiously, I'm not going to say what's happening after, but that's my point, is we don't know what's happening. So how is that possible that something is intelligently interacting with us? One of the best episodes of Ghost Hunters is a recording where they are talking and they say, "Hello, can you hear me?" And this woman, I think it was like a princess, it might have been overseas, but they hear this woman goes, "Hello? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?" And they're like, and they couldn't hear it real time. It was in recording. And then she goes, "I can hear you. Why can't I see you?" So without ever actually being in the same room as this person, she was hearing them but not seeing them. So theory about that. Are you familiar with the string theory? The
I
theory
am
that
not.
there are. Okay, so this is a theory, an actual scientific theory, that our universes, there's an infinite amount of universes in terms of time that are running parallel to each other, right? That's why we never encounter. You've heard the theory of like alternate universes and stuff with
Mm-hmm.
like Flash,
Time space
Earth.
continuum and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, Earth X, Earth 33, stuff like that. Well, what's happening is they're all parallel, right? Moving to the same point in time, but we never touch. That's why we're never really existent in another universe. For example, fish, right? Underneath the sea, if humans had never dipped a toe in the ocean or fish or anything like that, fish would have never known that we have existed, and we would have never known that fish existed. But we would coexist in the same timeline, in the same era, in the same space for all of eternity, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So the theory for string theory is that when we have these intelligent encounters with the paranormal, where we're able to interact with them, it's not paranormal. It's not the dead coming back to life to talk to us. It's a alternate universe coming closer, so close that we're almost in the same universe, but just not quite enough to say, because physics, you can't share the same space like that. That doesn't make sense. Right. Conservation of matter. But you get so close that it's almost like the strings, or it's vibrating, so you get to interact with that other, I guess, universe momentarily. So, like the theory goes, there's in another universe, I may be a criminal, right? I may be the president of the United States. There's there's infinite me's in infinite different roles across the universe. So when we're interacting or hearing something to the other universe, per se, we're the ghost to them as they are the ghost to us.
Mm-hmm.
But as crazy as that sounds, the point that I'm trying to make is there is some science behind it. And like, for where I stand on the paranormal is not that it is life after death. It's there's some sort of scientific explanation to what we're experiencing. We just don't understand it. And so I'm leaning more on the unexplainable reality versus science fiction, just because there's something to it. It's hard to explain. And as Tommy knows, that one live stream, I've had experiences in the past, things that I cannot explain. When I was a kid, when my grandfather died, he was the first person in my life that's passed away. I remember being super upset. I think I was a freshman in high school, and I remember going to sleep that night, like just after finding out, and having what I thought was a dream where he was sitting, which was walked into my room and sat down in the computer chair that I had, which was odd because he had clubfoot, so he's always on crutches his entire life. And turns around and talks to me about what's going on. That's, he's going to a better place and so on and so forth. And to me, it's just coping, right? Even in the moment, I'm like, okay, this is just me coping and understanding what's happening. This is how, because I've never had this happen before. But what was weird, because I always tuck that chair in at night, because I stub my toe on it all the time, is when I woke up, that chair had spun around like it did in my dream or whatever it was. So that's when it started for me. That's when it was like, okay, that's a little weird. Now, fast forward, probably didn't really experience anything up until college. And that same friend that I told you that got dehydrated, right?
Yeah.
We hung out a lot in college. We were musicians too. So it was my junior year, right? Rainy night in Florida, and just off campus, they have this this place called the Music House. So it's an old home that I guess got repossessed by the university. And so we go there, and there's this huge room in there that has piano stuff, right? Like a piano and a drum set. We call it the jam room. So one night after studying, him and I go in there. I'm playing piano. He's playing drum set. I'm sitting here. The door's off to my right, and it's just like a thick door for like soundproofing with a little square window, right? I personally don't like playing piano in front of people because I get nervous and stuff like that. So usually if somebody that I don't know walks in, I'll stop playing. So I'm sitting there playing. He's jamming on the drum set. We're jamming together. And I get the sensation that someone's going to walk through the door. So I stop and I look. Nobody walks through. I was like, that's weird. So I go back to doing it. I'm jamming. And then I get the same sensation. Like, oh, somebody's here, right? Somebody's going to walk through. And I stop. And I turn and look. And I'm not talking corner of my eye. I am talking looking straight on at that window. A figure that it was semi-transparent, black. Looked like this. No features, but just a profile. Walks from left to right into this back bedroom over here. To the left was the entryway. I immediately stopped playing. And I'm sitting there going, there's no way. That has to be a person. And then I turn around, and my friend's on the drum set. I didn't realize that he had stopped playing. He's pointing his drumstick at the window with his jaw on the ground. And I was like, okay, hold on, right? Trying to do it from scientific method here. I was like, let me tell you what I saw, and you can tell me if it's the same thing. And we told him, and he freaked out. He's like, we got to get out of here. He's like, you got to go. I'm like, I'm going to go check the back room. That has to be a person. There's no way that just happened. So he's like, you can do that, but I'm out. So he's like, I'll wait for you on the front porch. So I go to that back room. I check the closet. There's nobody there. I walk out, and the rule of thumb, you had to turn off all the lights, right? So everything was a switch. So I did the standard flip all the switches and run. Did not look behind me, right? We're walking away from the house, going back to our dorms, talking about what just happened, right? It's pouring rain. And he looks at me. He kind of looks over his shoulder at the house again. He goes, don't turn around. I said, what do you mean? And of course, what do? I turn around.
Turn around. Yeah.
And I turn around, and what I see is that back bedroom light that I had turned off was on. Everything was a light switch. It was turned on. And that was one of the last times I went to that house. And I was talking to a security guard I knew on campus, and he was telling me that a older gentleman had passed away in the home prior to the university repossessing it and turning it into the music home.
Okay.
So that's when I was like, okay, that's a little weird, right? And then I was dating a girl, and there's another theory called poltergeist. It's not the old school version of poltergeist where it's like a mischievous spirit. Poltergeist implies that for some reason people have the ability to create their own paranormal activity. So it's centered around a living person, not a spirit. I dated a girl in college who was probably somewhere around that, because I dated her for a little bit, saw a couple weird things in the apartment I was staying at the time. I was a flight instructor. And then obviously things didn't work out. So, but when we parted ways, all this stuff stopped. So I was like, once again, it's like, Now, fast forward, and this one's wild. I don't understand how this happened. So in 2020, we bought our new house, right, before we got this one. And so we're sitting there, and my wife and I, we broke out the tent. It was a little too cold to hang out outside, basically. And we set up our tent in our living room because we were just like, let's just camp with the dogs in the living room, right? Let's have a night. We'll make burgers on the oven, you know. And about 1 a.m, clear as day, from the back of our kitchen, we hear a man whistle. It goes like clear as day. I mean, my wife and I both sat straight up in our tent, and the dogs freaked out, and I was like, what was that? Now, granted, this is a new house, new subdivision. There shouldn't be anything, right? So, I texted my neighbor, really good friends with my neighbor. I texted him. I said, hey, were you, I know this is weird, but were you out with your dogs at like 1 a.m. whistling? Because that was that side of the house. He goes, dude, I was fast asleep. I had security cameras. If you're secure, nobody was around. There was no reason for that to happen. But then it didn't happen. We listened. I set up, a camera to kind of record sound if it heard it. So fast forward to a year later, almost to the date, I have my parents spending time with me because we're going on vacation, celebrating me getting moving on to my current job with my new airline. And my dad is sleeping on an air mattress in the living room, kind of where we were. I haven't told him anything at this point, right? I've never told him about this because I just thought it was us hearing something. So my dad, the next morning, wakes up and he goes, the weirdest thing happened around like 1 a.m. I woke up to what sounded like a man whistling.
That's weird.
And I said, okay. And he goes, but that's not the weird thing. He's like, I heard it 3 times. He's like, the first time I was kind of like groggy from sleep, so I thought maybe I was just hearing something. And the last 2 times happened about 5 minutes later, and I heard it clear as day. And I said, where? Where did you hear this? And he points to that exact freaking corner of the kitchen that we heard it from. So my mind goes racing. Like, how is that possible that a newly built home in a new subdivision has activity, right? So I started doing research. I dug into records, and I went as far back as I think 1893. That's as far back as I could with my local area plat maps to try to see what was here, if there was something that would have happened on this place before we got here that would cause something. And there isn't. There really isn't. It was just farmland, basically. But what we do have, or what we did have underneath, was one of the largest caves where I live was underneath us. So you got running water, spring water, and I believe it was limestone or granite, which is supposedly supposed to be a conduit for paranormal activity. But the biggest one, I think I knew, Tom. I think I told you about this one. Um, well, there was two. So there was one I told you about, and then I was live streaming with you. Remember
I
the
remember the
second
one
time,
live streaming.
which I'll go over in a second.
Yeah, the second one,
So
I'm not going to steal your thunder. If it's the one I'm thinking of, yeah, I remember
we
it
were playing
vividly.
American Truck Simulator.
Yeah, when we were playing
Yeah.
ATS, that one, yep.
Yep. So this other one, I was out on a trip. I texted you about this one. I was out on a trip, so I was elsewhere. There was severe weather here where I live. So my wife, my dogs get really scared of bad weather. So my wife took them in, since I wasn't home, took them into the bedroom to sleep with her, right? And we normally lock our bedroom door at night just for security reasons. Now, on top of our door, ironically, is those little keys that you can, those like little hook keys that you put in the door just in case you get locked out, because I've done it before. We usually set them on top so that way if we do get locked out, we just pop them into the hole and unlock the door. So, and it just sits right on top of on the door frame. My wife's so short that normally I have to grab it if anything happens. But the dogs were with her. She was in there. Severe thunderstorm. I get a picture the next day as I'm getting ready for work in the morning of that key sitting in the middle of the carpet, which the carpet is about 15 feet away from that door. And I said, "What's going on? Why is that in the middle of the floor?" And she said, "I woke up to this." I said, "Did that? What? How did that? What?" She said, "It somehow came off the door in the master hallway, came off the top of the door, landed on the carpet, and somehow moved 15 feet across carpet." This was before hardwoods, that we installed the hardwoods. 15 feet across a rug, and then jumped about an inch onto our area rug and stayed there.
That's freaky.
And I said, "Where were the dogs?" I was like, 100%, where are the dogs? And she's like, "They were with me." I said, "They didn't do that the night before?" She said, "No, I even reached out. I made sure that there was nothing on the floor. The first thing the dogs did when they came out is they ran and started sniffing that." That I can't explain with any science. I don't know how a little key like that drops to carpet and then moves 15 feet. That one I still don't understand. I really don't.
Nah,
Now,
for lack of an earthquake.
yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And I said, "You're screwing with me, right?" And she goes, "No, I 100%." I checked the cameras because I have cameras in my house. Nothing was triggered during the time that it moved. But when there's motion, it triggers. So I could see when my wife went to bed and when she woke up. Nothing happened in between. So, and then it gets better. Same house. You and I are doing that live stream on American Truck Simulator. I am home by myself. It was kind of a stormy day. I'm sitting there driving along. I actually have video of it. I wish I could show it on here. It's on my phone. But I am sitting here playing along in an American Truck Simulator. And then out of the corner of my eye, initially, I see what's about 3 feet off the ground. It almost looks like a semi-see-through floating shadow kind of peek out into the hallway. And then remember, because I said, "What?" And I look, and it disappeared. Like it kind of pulled back behind the door frame over here. And I remember, I was like, "That's weird," because my first reaction was like, "Okay." So I go back to it, and then I look over there, and remember the second time I actually stopped the truck where it was in stream on American Truck Simulator because I saw it straight on. There was something peeking around the corner at me, which was weird because it was like 3 feet. It was about 3 feet, so I thought it was my dog. So I called my dog. Well, my dog comes running from, I can hear her, and her collar comes running. My black dog comes from the living room, and that thing just kind of pulls back. And I remember I get up, and I'm like, "There's no way." So I get up, and I look, and that door's closed. There's nowhere for whatever it was to go. And then it was shortly after I sit down, and I tell you, I'm like, "All right, well, something weird is happening." And then as soon as I sit down and look, it happens again. That thing literally comes around and peers at me around the thing. I said, "There's no way." And I get back up, remember? And then I go in there because I saw it. And I opened and I went and I was, and it was funny because off stream I was explaining, I had my wife sit in my chair and I had my dog run back and forth to kind of show her and to see if maybe that she could see something like that, if it was something that maybe I missed. But as I was showing her, I had that back room door open, and I went to go close it, and I saw what I thought was my dog disappear into the room. So I called her. I said, "Hey, come out of there. I'm closing the door." And then I get a boop on the back of my leg, and I turn around, and it's my dog standing behind me. My dog never went into the room. So whatever that was not only peering and peeking at me, but it ran past me a couple times. And I'm a scientific person. I am the most down to earth person you could probably. I don't know what it was. I have 100% no idea to this day what it was. I could not explain it.
Yeah, that was just weird, especially when we were live streaming because you came back and your facial expression was different.
I was white with. I looked like a ghost, pun intended, because
Yeah, the
I
cage
couldn't
definitely
believe what I
got
was seeing.
rattled for a second there.
Well, and it wasn't playing. It wasn't like it was Halloween. It was like what? What was it? It wasn't Halloween. It's not like we were doing anything spooky. We were just in the middle of an
No, I
American
think
Truck
it was
Simulator
just like
stream.
a normal. We were both off. Let's do ATS stream day. I mean, it was
Yeah, I
nothing
feel like
really special.
no, and it's stuff like that that when people are like, "Oh, ghosts don't exist," I'm like, "Pump your brakes there, Charlie Brown." It's to dismiss it is very ignorant. Now, I'm not saying that was like somebody from ancient times, coming back to no. I just there has to be something to it because like the whistling is could be residual, like the tape recorder, right? But the moving of the objects, that's intentional. That's intelligent. But I don't understand how a newly built home, and I couldn't find any records. I even went to like the county records for death that went, I think, only went back to like the 1940s. Couldn't find anything. Could not find anything. Even traced the ownership of my property back until 1893.
And I do believe I said to you when first found out about your new house, right? When right after the New Year's, like, dude, make sure before you buy the plot of land, make sure you ain't like, your house ain't going to be built on top of like an Indian burial site or some
Yeah,
weird stuff.
yeah. Well, it's funny because it's I don't know if you ever heard the theory that ghosts can attach or paranormal entities can attach themselves to
I've
you.
heard this theory, yes.
So we affectionately called this paranormal activity. We called it John. Is what we called it at the old house. So if we heard something weird, and we did. I mean, we actually kept a little log in our books. We had a little book because my goal was to try to see if there was a specific time and place or something that was happening, right? Observational science that would trigger these events, something that I could explain. And so we would call it John, is what we called it. And so right as we're about ready to leave, the house is empty. My wife comes out and just says to the empty house, "John, I have a box packed for you if you want to come along." And I looked at her and I'm like, what are you doing? I don't want that, you know? And so it's still I haven't heard anything here yet. But it also took almost 2 years for John to show himself at the previous house. So did he come along? I have no idea. I have absolutely no freaking
I'm
idea.
gonna
But
we're gonna revisit this discussion in a couple of years.
yeah,
Since
and
your
I'll
wife
let you know.
opened the door for him.
I mean, I told her, and to be honest, at no point in time at the 4 years that we lived at that house did I ever feel threatened or scared. Largely because I'm more curious than anything. But as Tommy saw on that live, I have to find it where I
Oh, I
just
know you
looked
got the
at. I
video.
just
It's
I
somewhere
was
in the archives.
yeah. It scared the. It didn't scare me. It was just unexpected. I did not
Yeah,
expect to see that. Um, but anyways, that was my long-winded explanation of and my side of paranormal. So obviously, I'm a quote-unquote believer, but I have more of a scientific, what I feel like a theory of what's going on. What about you, Tommy? Do you have a scientific theory, or are you a believer?
all
Sorry,
right.
believer is
So
a wrong word.
the theory of someone attaching, or I was working. Oh, geez, this was the early '90s. I was in Brooklyn. I was working Brooklyn, East New York. We had an old timer in the station. and he was saying how it happened because along my career field, how many different ways did I see death, natural and unnat? And I remember him telling my partner and me that you need to carry sage in the truck because spirits can attach themselves to you while you're sitting there waiting for the police. Like, while you're safeguarding the crime scene or,
Oh, I gotcha.
yeah. And I'm looking at him like, bro, are those regular Marlboro or like, you got wacky tobacco? What's going, you all right over there? I mean, is this why you're on light duty? I mean,
Yeah.
and I never really thought about it. And, to me, it was it's just part of the job. Well, that's how
Yeah.
it got to be. The one time that I can explain it is when I moved back up to Pennsylvania. So we're talking 16 years ago,
Mhm.
17 years ago. Um, my stepdaughter, who's the oldest, right,
Mhm.
has a very, very soft spot for animals. She
Okay.
brings home a stray tuxedo cat in the middle of January, right? We already had a dog, but our dog was like whatever.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this little cat, we took it to the vet because it just did not look good. We took it to the vet. They estimated it was about 4 months old. And I was like, well, all right, I'll bite. Give the kitten a chance. I'll pay for the antibiotics, this, that, and the other thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, apparently there was a lot more wrong with this kitten.
Oh.
So we had to help it across the bridge, right? About,
Yep.
and like on my days off, it would be sitting by my feet. It would just be there. And yeah, I'd pick it up. I'd let it sit on my lap and do whatever. So we take it. It crosses the Rainbow Bridge. So a couple months goes by, and I was sleeping on the couch, which is where I spent like the last 5 years of that marriage. And I'm looking uh, under a piece of furniture in the dining room,
Mhm.
and I see this kitten staring at me. Like you see, and it was a tuxedo. Like those of us, like everybody in the world, even if you're not a cat person, you know what a tuxedo cat looks like.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
black face with the white stripe up the
White
middle. I
stripe.
mean,
Mhm.
everybody, in our viewership has seen Bastet at one point or another,
Yep. Mhm.
right? And I'm looking and I'm like, and by the way, this was before I had glasses. So I actually still had 2020 non-corrected at the time. And I'm like, whatever. Turn around, go to sleep. I wake up like an hour and a half later. There's the face again, like under the hutch, right? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I
Yeah.
get
What
up.
am What am I seeing?
Yeah, I'm going into the dining room. I got my cell phone with me. I hit it with the light. There is absolutely nothing there. There's not even one of the old, ping pong balls that the cat would play with.
Yeah.
Nothing, right? And then I smell the litter box because Brittany, the little litter box that kitten had
Mhm.
was with Febreze in it.
Okay.
And I'm like, this is stupid. I'm like, I ain't even dealing with this. I go back to bed. I wake up, make sure the kids get off to school, yada yada blah. My ex-wife comes down. Well, at the time she wasn't my ex-wife. And I looked at her, I was like, I got really something stupid to tell you. I was like, you're gonna think I'm really off my rocker this time. And she's like, what? I was like, so I was sleeping, I turn around and I seen Mooney, because that's what Brittany had named the
Yeah.
cat, Mooney.
Mhm. Okay.
I was like, at two different times, I saw that little cat's face under the hutch. And then when I went over there to look at it, I was like, I smelled that Febreze litter. That used to drive me insane because I don't like those perfumey smells
Yep.
at all.
Mhm.
And so calmly and so matter of fact, my ex-wife looks at me and goes, "Oh, we see her all over the house. She never left here. She never crossed over." I'm like, and this is a thing? You believe this? But like to this
See.
day, I can actually draw you a picture with a pencil of what it looked because it was just laying there and it was just the face, no ears, nothing,
Yeah. And I
staring right at me.
And I think that's the big thing. I think a lot of people are skeptics until they're not. And that's the thing. I wouldn't say I was I'd say I was a skeptic, but even as a kid watching, Ghost Hunters growing up, because it was like, oh well, it could have been this or this. And it took me having that first, with my grandfather, but realistically, the one in college was the one that like really got me, because like I said, it wasn't corner of the eyes. I stared straight at it and could not explain it. And I think that's the more and more I have questions, the more and more I'm less skeptical. But once again, my point of view is not necessarily something that is proving life beyond what we have here, physically, tangibly what we have here, but more so that there's just something scientifically that's happening that we can't explain, is largely what I'm saying. So, Tommy, are you on the science fiction side? So we can wrap this up. Are you science fiction or on the unexplainable reality side?
Unexplainable reality. There's a science behind this. There's like an actual science.
Yeah, there's something going on. And once again, for the human race to say, nah, and just be like, we know everything, is extremely arrogant.
Speaking of tuxedo cats.
Bastet, yeah.
She came walking out.
Yeah, so I think this show is on the side of that it's unexplainable reality. Let us know in the comments. I'll definitely put it down in our Spotify, our poll there, to see if you guys either believe in the paranormal or give us your thoughts on what it is. We do have one question that popped up while we were discussing that I do want to, from YouTube, from Lars Van Bury. Oh, I put that up there. Sorry, my thing. Hey guys, tomorrow I have an entrance exam for my new flight school. Do you have any tips for math and physics? Math and physics, sounds like you are probably a European pilot, because that's not really something that we go into necessarily on our side, but basically just study. It's a big thing. Just read the books. If you have questions, don't be afraid to ask a question. It's your flight training. So definitely take advantage of all the resources that you have available to you. And we also got some
physics. Make sure you got the right variables in the right portion of the equation.
Yeah. And got some good comments from Caden during our discussion. How does this not scare the crap out of you all? When it happens to you, Caden, I think it's just curiosity takes over. I've always been a curious person.
I was more curious. I was more along the lines of, what is that?
How's that possible?
And let me tell you something, Caden. To rattle my cage to that point, it's got to be something really, really big.
Yeah.
Not like...
So, yeah, it's and also you gotta with what Tommy has seen as an EMT, and my job as an airline pilot, where we are, trained to keep cool in weird situations or odd situations. Our first instinct is usually to analyze and understand what's going on. So that is definitely something that I think helps with attempts to help with my understanding of what I have experienced in the past. But with that, folks, this is where we're going to wrap it up. It was a long one. It was a good one. Thanks, Tommy, for that topic. That topic was phenomenal. So it definitely helped us. It was a good time, especially in April approaching May. I was like, well, this would be a good time to talk about it.
So that concludes, and we're halfway to Halloween.
Halloween. Yep, that's true.
Unexplainable.
Well, there you go. Unexplainable reality. So that concludes episode number 18. April showers bring May ghosts. We thank you all for joining us this week. And if you enjoyed this week's show, please let us know by rating the show on the respective platform that you're listening on. So for Spotify users, at the top of the podcast page near the notification bell, hit the 3 dots and select rate show. For Apple Podcast users, scroll all the way to the bottom of the podcast page to give us your rating and review. And if you're watching with us today live on YouTube, Kick, Twitch, and Twitter, please do us a favor. You can go to either Spotify or Apple Podcasts and rate it there, like I just explained. That would largely help us out. Right now, we were ranked out at not negative, 58 last year, so we were one of the top 60 podcasts for aviation in the United, or actually in the world, according to Apple Podcasts, and we kind of tumbled down, so we're trying to get that rating back up. So if you do enjoy the talk show, definitely please leave us a rating there. If you want to stay up to date with the talk show and industry news, follow us on Twitter at Torque, the letter N, TS, Torque in Thrust TS. If you like to save the show for on-the-go entertainment and news, follow and turn on notifications for the talk show on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and iHeartRadio. Feel free to follow me and Tommy D on YouTube, Twitch, and TikTok at Captain Bill Official. and Tommy's is at Level Flight Simulations. Next live show will be Friday, May 3rd at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, excuse me. And on behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, I am Bill.
I am Tommy.
And everybody have a great, wonderful day, and we will see you next week.